Good day. I'm with Randy Durband, CEO of the Global Sustainable Tourism Council. Pleasure to have you with us today.
Nice to be here.
There's so much going on about the sustainable tourism, especially in Karnataka. Why have you chosen Karnataka to be the first state to look at promoting such practices?
Well, I think Karnataka chose us. We make ourselves available throughout the world to provide support and resources on making destinations and regions more sustainable, and it's their interest in doing so that brought me here.
Wonderful. And talking about sustainable tourism, who do you feel are the main collaborators and stakeholders who should ideally be part of this initiative in taking it forward?
Well, it starts with trade associations and industry and government, and it's hard to separate who's more important as industry or government because they both play such an important role to play, and they need to work together. The travelers are part of it. We need to make travelers more aware and more sensitized to issues that require responsible behavior and so forth, and selection of travel product and travel providers that are more sustainable. But yeah, it really starts with industry leaders and government to get things moving.
Wonderful. And in order to take this forward, I think we need to have happy people and communities around. How do you feel we can really create a win win situation which is also sustaining and which has a positive impact moving forward?
Well, I think that the residents of a community are important to consider. Is traveling a right or a privilege? Do we have a right to go anywhere in the world and act the way we want? No, I think we have an obligation as travelers and travel providers to consider the needs of the residents. And government has an obligation to protect its citizens. And what we're finding over time is that truly sustainable destination management really takes into consideration both the needs of the visitors and the residents. And if those are done in harmony and managed harmoniously, then everybody succeeds. Tourism is a service business. It's all about customer satisfaction and customer service. So no visitor likes to go to a place and they don't feel like they're appreciated or wanted in the place. So the residents play an important role in that as well. When residents of a community understand the value of tourism to its economic livelihood, then they'll tolerate any inconveniences and annoyances associated with it.
True.
And
Yes.
and again, that's where industry leaders, trade associations, and government play a part to make sure that there is public participation, opportunity to have a voice in tourism development. So that harmonious whole is created by having some mechanisms for inclusive planning.
Great. And when we talk about value creation and value addition, what comes to my mind is the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. And how do we see the Global Sustainable Tourism Council aligned towards that?
Well, the Sustainable Development Goals, we call them the SDGs, have three of the goals specifically mention tourism, but the UN system has formally stated that tourism is cross-cutting, travel and tourism is cross-cutting through all of the SDGs. And it just makes sense when you think for a moment. Travel and tourism account for 10% of global economy and global jobs. And just think about the complexity of the travel and tourism experience. There's so many different kinds of components and players. So when we look at sustainable consumption and production generally across all sectors, travel and tourism really does touch upon a lot of elements. So our GSDC criteria, which are the global baseline standards for sustainability in travel and tourism, really speak to the SDGs. And the detail is in the criteria. And that matches very well where tourism certainly where tourism is specifically mentioned in the SDGs, but in the general spirit of travel and tourism contribution to supporting the SDGs are very much in our criteria.
I read an article recently on a travel report which talks about one out of 10 jobs go into the tourism industry. And now with sustainable tourism practices moving forward, do you see that number growing in the near future?
I don't know if the ratio will grow. I would hope it would. I think that tourism has a very important role to play in job growth. Many sectors worship at the altar of productivity and job loss to try to replace people with machines and technology. And that certainly has a place, in many parts of the economy. But I think that in travel and tourism, which is intensely personal, socially and personally based, that I think it's wise for travel and tourism to not try to push humans out of jobs, that the traveler wants a human experience, and so we want as many human service providers as possible.
True.
And not replaced by technology and so forth. And I think tourism would be wise to look at that strategically, to say, yeah, we're a people-to-people business. Let's keep the people in place. Okay, some automated ticket machines are appropriate, but in general, there's huge opportunity for continued job growth in travel and tourism.
And a final question to you. As you're aware, the Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce is, very enthusiastically involved in promoting sustainable tourism. Do you have a message for the business community? How can they get on board and, join this journey?
Yeah, it's very exciting to see the chamber show this interest and enthusiasm. The community in general can get on board by participating in some of the plans we're talking about today, in terms of awareness raising, because that's the first step. We see it everywhere we go in the world, that when tourism players start learning the breadth of sustainable tourism concepts, which has elements that are that it's not just about sort of avoiding bad things, of bad behaviors we should avoid. There's many elements that are very positive and uplifting.
True.
And they're motivating.
Yes.
And so we see that when people become aware of all those things, they get very motivated. Studies show, for example, that businesses throughout various sectors, but certainly in hotels and tour operators in the travel and tourism business, because it is so people-oriented, employee retention is higher when there's a strong CSR activity of the business. So the employees feel better about it. But by just raising the awareness to learn what they should be doing is just the first step, and that just self-motivates people when they start seeing firsthand what should be done and what could be done. They figure out for themselves what are the next steps.
True. Randy Durband, CEO of the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, thank you for your time with us, and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Bye. Good day. I'm with Shravan Gupta, Executive Director, FCM Travel Solutions. Pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Well, there's so much being talked about sustainable tourism, and we see you promoting Karnataka as one of the ideal holiday destinations. Tell us what makes Karnataka so appealing to tourists across the world.
Sure. Thanks, Sameera, for having me here. Karnataka is probably one of the most diverse states in our country. We have beaches, hill stations, plantations, adventure, honeymoon spots, and so on. So there's so much that the state has to offer that it makes it very interesting for tourists both within our own country and for foreigners who would like to come and see our heritage, our culture, and so on. In fact, interestingly, there was recently a group of Belgians who came here to see wine growing in Karnataka. So, a lot has changed and a lot has developed. So it makes Karnataka a very interesting place.
Wonderful. When we talk about tourism, all of a sudden we have sustainable added to it. What really, in your context, makes tourism so sustainable, and how is Travel Tours really promoting sustainable tourism across the world?
Sure. See, when it comes to sustainable tourism, the idea is that a destination that is attractive today should remain that way for the next generations. It's not just for us to enjoy. So what are we going to leave behind for the future generations to enjoy if we ruin a beautiful destination? So the idea of sustainable tourism comes from the fact that we must respect and look after the destinations that we go to, the places that we use on holidays. So if you take, for example, any waterfall, Is the area being maintained in a clean manner? Are we using plastics around there? How many visitors are allowed in a day? So on and so forth. So primarily, we need to preserve these destinations. They should not decline in value over the next generations.
I believe Travel Tours has done so much already in this, league. What is your advice as a leading tour operators to others in the region?
My only advice is that support sustainability, use hotels and resorts that follow sustainable practices, use tour operators that support sustainable practices. That way the word spreads, people get more aware, and all destinations and tourist spots become sustainable.
Shravan Gupta, Executive Director, FCM Travel Solutions. Thank you for your time and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Good day. I'm with Ram Kumar, board member of the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, as well as the MD of Our Native Village. Pleasure to have you with us today.
Pleasure to be here.
Lovely. There's so much being talked about sustainable tourism, and being a board member of the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, Karnataka has been the first state to adopt, seriously look at these practices. Where do you see the future of sustainable tourism across India?
Yeah, there's a lot that's going to happen over the coming years. So as a board member, I have responsibility for India as a country. I'm the country head for India and the South Asian region also. And we've been interacting with all the governments in the South Asian countries, including India, of course. And there's a lot of interest because now governments are beginning to see the merit, or more importantly, the necessity to slip into the Global Sustainable Tourism Council's criteria in specific, but in general to move towards sustainable tourism. Most countries are signatories of the United Nations, Sustainable Development Goals and to the Climate Pact that was signed in Paris. So there's a heightened consciousness towards sustainability. And this heightened consciousness is spreading across all sectors, and tourism is also obviously one very important sector because of its potential for, employment generation, poverty alleviation, GDP increase and all of that. So governments are getting very interested, so there's a lot of potential. As far as the private sector is concerned, they are a little slower on the uptake because as of now it's business as usual. They don't see a need for it. And that comes from a lack of awareness of what benefits can sustainable tourism principles, practices and processes deliver to the businesses in specific. Right now there's an overall impression that it's good to do, it's nice to do, if I'm going to save the planet I should do it, it's all CSR, esoteric. But the private sector still doesn't realize the actual core benefits of moving towards sustainable tourism. And that will only come as we run more awareness programs and training programs. So it's work in progress. So from the GSTC's perspective, we are taking a long-term view. I'm taking a 10-year view as far as South Asia and India is concerned, to say in 10 years we should be able to move the needle significantly. And so let's hope it goes that way.
Wonderful. So Ram, I'm going to move perspectives now from the GSTC to you being a private owner of, our own village?
Our native village.
Our native village. That's a lovely name. Well, tell me this. Is sustainable tourism a nice brand to have to showcase your offerings? Or does it really and seriously, add a value business proposition and you see returns in the long term?
So when I started my resort more than 11 years ago, I didn't start it because I wanted to run a hotel. I'm not a hotelier.
Okay.
I've just come from the outside completely. I'm very passionate about sustainability, and I had promised myself that I'll build a model for sustainable living. And my resort is a manifestation of that. It is a testing ground on is it possible to build a model for sustainable living. And I chose the hospitality business because it's unforgiving. Clients, when they pay 10,000 rupees a night, they're not going to be too bothered about where the electricity is coming from. They're very demanding,
yes.
Right? The service business is very demanding. And I wanted a demanding business to try out the concepts of sustainability because that's the only way we'll perfect the model. So 11 years now, and I think we built a successful model for sustainability. from the hospitality space perspective, and it served us pretty well. Now, lots of what happens in the hospitality business, not all, lots of what happens is what we call greenwashing. Hotel typically changes their bulbs, the CFL bulbs, puts a little note in the bathroom saying use your towels twice please, and suddenly they are an eco resort. So that is something that has been rolling the roost for many years. I've seen it over the last decade. But the encouraging thing is, when I started my resort, I used to generate 70% of my electricity myself using solar panels and windmills. All my construction was 100% sustainable construction. I had a fully natural swimming pool where I use aquatic plants to clean the water. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So biogas, the various, and we were experimenting with everything, saying what is working, what is not working, what is working we kept, what is not working we threw out and went on to the new. So when I started doing it those days, I remember people from the hospitality business, friends turned around and said, what is all this circus about? And, put a diesel generator and get on with your life. You're in the business of hospitality, but
True.
that was not my passion. So in a way, for me, because sustainability was so big, and that is what I was experimenting on. So I'm a bit of a Puritan. Yeah. So I'm a bit of a Puritan, and necessarily I'm critical of people who do greenwashing. Necessarily I'm critical of people whose standards are very low, because last thing we want to do in the business is to glorify low standards. That's the worst thing we can do for any sector, right?
Yeah.
You only glorify the gold standard.
Yes.
So I've been a bit of a critic. Yeah, I've not made many friends in the industry because of that. But that's all right. I'm not here to win an election. But overall, what we managed to do with my resort is to, and my resort, and of course, like me, there are many other resorts. Of course, Kerala has lots of them, and all over the country there are lots of these resorts. So all of us together have raised awareness to some extent,
Wonderful.
on sustainable tourism. Yeah.
And what are your final words to the business community out here in Karnataka and all over India? What is it that they can do, either collaboratively or individually, to promote sustainable tourism practices?
Yeah, the first thing I want to tell the industry is, when I started it, my commercial value system was not as sound as it needed to be, because my objectives were different, right? From 11 years ago to today, prices have crashed,
Yes.
right? Solar PV cells, windmills, storage systems, everything, the prices have crashed exponentially. So at that time when I started building my resort, even then I was financially viable. Now it contributes to your bottom line. It is commercially extremely viable.
Great.
So my advice to people in the industry will be, remove this mindset that, if you go towards sustainability, it's very expensive. Replace that mindset with the fact that when you get into sustainable tourism, you're definitely going to reduce your operational costs, which will directly go to your bottom line. Secondly, you will be in tune with what the consumer wants tomorrow.
Yes.
You don't want to be irrelevant, and you better start that journey today. A time will come when consumers will turn around and say, when they are on TripAdvisor, is this GSTC certified? Yes, no. If they're not, no, forget it, we won't go there. It will come. It's coming very quickly. Before that hits you, and you don't have enough time to prepare for it, start the journey now. It'll take you 2-3 years, to complete that journey.
But
So
start it somehow.
start it, because it is from a pure bottom line perspective. It is the right thing to do. It's the next best thing to do to make money, besides increasing your own sales. This is something which is commercially viable, and it makes a lot of sense. Financially, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, talking about the right thing to do, Ram, thank you for being with us today as a board member of the GSTC. We really appreciate your inputs and hope that Karnataka paves the way and hopefully leads the way towards India becoming a sustainable tourist spot. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure speaking to you.
Pleasure. Thank you. Good day. I'm with Priyank Kharge, Honorable Minister of IT and BT, Science and Technology and Tourism Department, Government of Karnataka. Pleasure to have you with us, Honorable Minister. Well, there's so much spoken about India with particular reference to Karnataka, and I believe once you came into featuring Karnataka and establishing a global presence, a lot has taken place here. Can you tell us what is it that we feel but have not really heard in the news till now?
I mean, there are a lot of things that government of Karnataka is trying to do in tourism, and probably one unique thing that we have done is that we have tried to capitalize on our unique advantage point of being a wildlife destination. Somehow, whenever you speak on tigers, people think about Madhya Pradesh or Sikkim for that matter, and whereas we have some of the best national parks, and we run some of the best ecotourism resorts by the government itself. So we run 21 of them successfully and profitably. So we declared it as the year of the wild, very consciously, because we are the only ones who have complete infrastructure there, and we are just not showcasing on wildlife or conservation of wildlife, but also the wild side of life. So this year we have got a heavy focus on aero sports. We have heavy focus on surfing, which nobody in India does, and rock climbing, bouldering. We are going to have international rock climbing festivals in some of the best UNESCO sites in India. Ramnagar, Patatkal, Aihole, Badami. So all these things, these are things that are out of the box, is what I would call them.
Lovely. You seem to be so passionate about Karnataka. What is it really that drives that energy in you to take projects forward and seeing it materialize and into action?
I have to be passionate about Karnataka because I'm born here. So, and of course, more importantly, it's I have a big responsibility of tourism and information technology, which have very high quotient of providing jobs in both these verticals. So I think, but more importantly, what I'm trying to do here is we're trying to have a more practical approach. Like we were talking earlier, that there are 325 destinations, but it becomes virtually impossible to develop all 325 destinations at a time. So we are taking the 2 UNESCO sites as a priority, and we have identified 20 other destinations where we are going to give world-class infrastructure this year. So the idea is to ensure that when we advertise this outside, when we propagate this outside, it would be at the international level.
Talking about 325 destinations, there was some time back when the Ministry of Tourism had invited corporates to be part of it. How was the response, and what exactly are you offering to corporates so that they can benefit with this association?
See, I think the response is pretty lukewarm, and for the reason that the CSR mandates saying that the first investment should go where they are located. So for example, if there is a cement factory which has acquired land, their primary duty is to ensure that the investment or their social investment or corporate investment goes there first. So we have received a few interests. We are evaluating them because we also have to take into consideration the sensitivity of archaeological survey of India sites or the state archaeology sites. So it's a little tricky, but we have made headway in a couple of sites.
Lovely. I believe some time back when corporates were invited to be part of it, BCIC was one of them. And Tiago, I remember you mentioning about the Lal Bagh Botanical Gardens, Kiran Mazumdar shot talking about Biocon, also getting involved, and even the museum and art galleries. Why has this not moved forward, and what are you doing about it?
So the art gallery is something that we faced a little bit of stiff resistance from the other stakeholders, which now I think is in a tailspin right now. But that having been said, the rest of the proposals are as it is, and we are evaluating how, because whether it's Lal Bagh or the museum, they come under the state archaeology, this thing. So we don't really, because conservation becomes a very important aspect of this. So it's just not the money part of it. The conservation part of it is the most important angle to it.
Talking about financial, assistance, I believe the government has allocated 8,000 crore rupees to BBMP to develop the state further. How are you tracking the report, and do you feel that this money is being effectively utilized currently?
This is the first time that the government of any government has given a substantial amount to Bengaluru, because Bengaluru, the government of Karnataka takes it very seriously because it's the nerve center. And Bengaluru airport, for example, has 22.5 million footfall. So we have so many people coming into Bengaluru every day, and we need to do something for the infrastructure. So the idea is to ensure that the infrastructure is developed, but the city is growing faster than the government's policies or the budget that is allocated, and it's a work in progress. And I think for any city to reach that level is very difficult. It's any global city for that matter, not just Bengaluru. So it's just a matter of time, I guess.
Lovely. And I think we're running short of time, so a final question to you. I think you've done wonderful work which we can all see, and Karnataka has really raised the bar when we compare it to other states. What are next steps when it comes to sustainable tourism practices, BCIC initiatives that are supporting this? What is the collaboration between the government and corporates in taking this forward?
We have been into sustainable tourism ever since it became fashionable, even before it became fashionable. So since 1980 we are into this, and the jungle lodges and resorts is a prime example for what we are doing. And also we are encouraging startups and other newer technologies to come in and help us to get rid of older practices that we thought were right. Besides that, BCIC has always been an integral part of any program of the government, and they've always been our valued partner, whether it's in industry, Department of Industry or tourism, and we value that partnership, and hopefully that these conversations that they engage with the government, and they have multiple reports that are always given out to the government that are actually implemented. So we take their word seriously, and we hope to have some kind of implementation or a steering committee formed out of this, and we'll see how we can help each other with sustainable tourism.
Yeah. Honorable Minister Priyank Kharge, we thank you for your time today in sharing this information and update with BCIC, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.